So I just got the new URUSEI YATSURA manga, and it has officially blown my dick off. Yeah, currently I'm in need of a new dick, so if anyone would be willing to Venmo me one sometime soon. On February 19th, 2019, Viz Media released the first 2 volumes of URUSEI YATSURA, which I'm still probably pronouncing wrong. Viz's URUSEI YATSURA, which for simplicity I'll be referring to as URUSEI 2019 throughout this video, is a new translation of a classic manga series. URUSEI YATSURA began its original run in 1978. While not the first series famous author Rumiko Takahashi worked on, it was her first big success. Takahashi would later go on to create other famous manga series, most notably Ranma 1/2 and Inuyasha. I won't go into too much detail about the series' basic premise and plot since I've already done so in another video called 5 URUSEI YATSURA episodes you should watch, which you should consider giving a watch since I'm actually quite proud of that video. I'm here today to talk about the original manga series, the various English releases, and the newly released URUSEI 2019. Before URUSEI 2019, a release of the URUSEI YATSURA manga has been severely limited in the States. Back in the 90s, Viz released a handful of chapters under the title of LUM URUSEI YATSURA. After a brief hiatus, they returned to do a few volumes under the incredibly confusing title of The Return of LUM. After that, they dropped the series, and all we were left with was a fan translation. The LUM and Return of LUM translations were not very good, because in addition to flipping the pages so that they read from left to right instead of their traditional right to left, there were a lot of questionable translation choices. And then there's the fan translation, which I will just leave to this short video by ProZD.
Screw you, Sasuke! I'm sick of your attitude. You are my friend. Fuck you, Sasuke! Ore am fucking sick of your fucking attitude! You are my nakama!
Now we've got this new translation, and with the 20-something years that have passed, we can see a big improvement. Now, I don't speak a word of Japanese, so perhaps this translation is actually terrible, and I'm a fool for believing otherwise. But at the moment, I feel confident in saying that this is a fantastic translation. I've read the whole book front to back 2 times now, and none of the dialogue struck me as feeling particularly out of place. I was pleasantly surprised to read to the end of the first volume and find a notes section, carefully detailing all of the obscure Japanese references that were lost on my American mind. For example, these few panels show some characters talking shit about Ataru, and then on the next page he sneezes. I just thought we were cutting to the next scene, but apparently this is a reference to a common superstition in Japan. As outlined in the Part 2 notes, page 217, panel 1. In Japanese culture, one superstitious belief dictates that if you sneeze, others are talking about you behind your back. This was not necessary. I would have been able to enjoy this manga without these notes, so it was really nice for them to go the extra mile. These little additions are what turn a good manga into a great manga. I love this series to death, but unfortunately I am very well acquainted with old, crappy translations and equally terrible fan translations. Now, finally, I have a translation that I feel comfortable trusting. Honestly, my interest in this series has been totally renewed thanks to this translation. Not since I first watched this series was I able to enjoy these stories and not second guess what I was reading. If you ask me, this is as good a translation as you're going to get, so have fun with it. So let's talk about the book. Now in Japan, the series was originally released weekly, 1 chapter at a time. Later on, chapters were condensed into 34 separate volumes. For URUSEI 2019, each book will contain 2 volumes, so Book 1 contains the first 2 volumes. Book 2 is going to contain volumes 3 and 4, and so on. In addition to containing around 10 chapters each volume includes some bonus content as well. In addition to the aforementioned note section, there are sections called URUSEI YATSURA Data File, Count Column, and exclusive to Volume 1 is a special message from the Bae herself, Rumiko Takahashi. In this special message, Takahashi speaks about her excitement for this new release. She's particularly excited to see the series released in its entirety. The whole series. In fact, she says this.
My whole suit! My whole fucking suit! My whole suit!
Actually, she talks about Lum as a character and how she relates, or rather, how she doesn't relate to Lum personally. Coupled with her message is a new drawing of Lum. It's alright, I suppose. I'm not terribly fond of her new style, but she gets an A for effort. And it is definitely better than what the fans have been drawing. The data file and count column are another really nice touch. These amount to not much more than some admittedly fun trivia and some playful over-analysis, but they are both really nice touches nonetheless. Going to repeat myself and say that this was not necessary. This manga would have been fine without these bits of trivia, so their inclusion tells me that Viz actually gives a shit. It is really, really nice to see them go the extra mile. It lets me know that, 1, the series is in good hands, and 2, there are people out there that are just as obsessed as I am when it comes to this series, which I suppose is pretty comforting. The first 2 iterations of the data file and count column show a surprising level of attention to detail. The first data file is a playful analysis of Tomobiki, the town that the series takes place in. I refer to it as playful over-analysis, but I don't want to give off the impression that there isn't any substance here. From the first paragraph alone, I can tell you that whoever wrote this knows their shit. In the first iteration of the URUSEI YATSURA data file, they write, "You might get the impression that URUSEI YATSURA is a school-based sci-fi comic that is set at Tomobiki High, the school that Ataru and Lum attend. In truth, Lum is absent from some of the earliest chapters, and originally the story was established as a neighborhood manga, revolving mainly around the Moroboshi household and its surroundings. And, as far as I can tell, that's right."
That's right! That's right! That's right! That's right! That's right! That's right! That's right!
The first count column also shows their careful attention to detail. According to the first iteration of count column, the total number of Lum's electrical attacks in URUSEI YATSURA is 322. Of these, the number directed at Ataru is 190. Of these directed at Ataru, the number in which someone or something else was accidentally or collaterally hit by the attack is 65. I mean, Jesus, they really went in depth. All in all, I highly enjoyed my time with this first iteration of URUSEI 2019. This is everything I could have wanted from this manga and more. I guess if I had to level some criticism though, I do think the layout was a little bizarre. Let me explain. When you open the book, you have Volume 1's table of contents, Volume 1 itself, Volume 1's extras, the data file, notes, and so on. Then after a one-page break, you have Volume 2's table of contents, Volume 2 itself, and Volume 2's extras. I think it would have been better if Volume 1 and 2's table of contents were combined and put near the beginning of the book, and then if the extras for both volumes were all put near the end. In all honesty, however, I'm actually fine with Volume 1's extras being put before Volume 2. It is the placement of Volume 2's table of contents that I find really puzzling. Then regarding the translation, if there's one thing I wouldn't have changed, it is the ordering of the names. See, as far as I know, in most of the Asian countries, the family name, or last name, gets put first, and the first name gets put last. For example, Son Goku. Son is his family name, Goku is his first name. You would address him as Goku. So the main character of this series is named Moroboshi Ataru, with Ataru being his first name. But in this manga, they flip his name so that it reads Ataru Moroboshi. They did the same thing in Ranma, Akane Tendo instead of Tendo Akane. Tendo Akane sounding much better than Akane Tendo in my opinion. Some people would rather his name be Ataru Moroboshi, but I prefer Moroboshi. I think Goku, son, sounds pretty weird. You know, the fact that my biggest gripe with this translation is something this inconsequential should tell you how fantastic a translation it really is. Oh, and I did see one embarrassing typo. In that excerpt from the data file I read before, they accidentally referred to the series as URUSEI YATSURA. Dumbass! As for the actual story itself, I ended up enjoying it a lot more than I expected to. I'm very familiar with the animated adaptation, and I regard the first 20 or so episodes of that series as being the worst part. And many of those episodes are adaptations of these stories, so I was pleasantly surprised to find that these are totally good stories. There's a lot of substance here. In fact, there was so much here that some of it was cut from those episodes. A good example is as early as Chapter 1 in the corresponding first episode of the anime. In one scene in the manga, Ataru and Shinobu argue at night. In another, Shinobu promises to marry Ataru if he wins the game of tag. These were two separate scenes that were condensed into one scene in the anime. In this book, there's a handful of unadapted scenes, and even some unadapted chapters. Seeing as it's the very start of the series, and it's some of the first material Rumiko Takahashi has worked on, it is not perfect. She definitely got much better as the series progressed. There are some visual oddities. Eyes will randomly grow, hairstyles will magically change, and I've heard quite a few people complain about the way she draws legs in particular. The panel structure also isn't perfect. While not being anywhere near Toyotaro levels of bad, panels can get a little cluttered, and things sometimes do move a little too quickly. By far the biggest problem with this part of the series is the tendency for chapters to lack endings. I know that sounds insane, but I don't really know any other way to describe it. A lot of chapters will just peter out instead of actually ending. After all, how would you describe this? And this? And this? And this?
And this, and that, and this, and that, and this, and that, and that?
Oh hey look, this one ended normally. How about that? Despite many of the problems the early manga faces and all the awkward kinks in the art, I really like this style. Like, I really like it. I feel like you'd be hard-pressed to find another manga that looks like this. I'm sure it exists, but it doesn't strike me as being incredibly easy to come across. Later on, the art would evolve into the style you see in Meisen Ikoku and Ranma. Her art from this period is much more consistent, but I think it comes at the cost of some of its personality. Not to say that the style is bad. I don't think it really starts to degrade until you get to Inuyasha or Rinne or whatever the hell I'm supposed to call this series. Oh, and also, this manga is pretty funny. Like, surprisingly funny. There were some pretty great jokes that I completely missed on my first read. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, this manga is good and you should buy it. Currently it's available for $20 or $14 if you want to buy it digitally. I don't think it's out yet in the UK or any other inferior foreign countries for that matter. This is true even if you want to buy it digitally. Yep, US only. If only there was a program that you could use to bypass this restriction, like some kind of virtual private network. That leads me to this video's sponsor. This video doesn't have a sponsor. I mean, why exactly would it have one? I didn't even monetize this. Fuck you.